2, 1, and we're live.
Okay. I drank a bunch of tea. Be real alert. Sometimes I get here and I'm so tired.
I hear you.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and begin the November 7th regular meeting of the City of Erie Historic Review Commission. And we'll begin, we'll call the meeting to order at 4:08 p.m. and start with roll call. Do we have present Craig Pepper?
Yes.
Yes.
Dave Brennan?
Here?
Mark Tannenbaum?
Here.
Melinda Meyer here. Jeff Salonis?
Present.
I didn't hear anything.
Present.
Did he?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Jason Wazorek? And Chris Kinder, we know, is absent. Next, we'll move to the approval of the minutes from our October 3rd meeting. Are there any proposed changes, or does someone wish to make a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 3rd.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mark Tannenbaum. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes or approving the motion to approve the minutes, please signify by aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Excellent. Then we'll move on to the public comments portion of our meeting. Do we have anyone either participating via Zoom or physically present in the meeting chambers that has attended and would like to make use of the public comment period? Hearing none from either our online attendees, or I would assume that if there's someone physically present in the meeting chambers, someone that is physically present would say something. So moving on then from the public comments portion of the meeting, let's jump to old business. So since Chris is not able to join us at this meeting, we can quickly review the fact that we have had at least one week set aside for public engagement activity. So representatives from the Lakota group were visiting Erie in October. We had set up a series of small group interviews and or meetings with various stakeholders from the community, including real estate, development, museums and cultural organizations, neighborhood groups, those that are working on community revitalization projects, lots of different subgroups of stakeholders met one-on-one with, or met in small group sessions with the Lakota group. The next series of public engagement activities is scheduled for December 12th and 13th. So representatives from the Lakota group will be back in Erie at that time. There's going to be one general workshop scheduled for the evening and 2 daytime workshops. And that's as much information as we have at the moment. Dave, unless you received any additional information from Chris today.
I have not.
Okay.
Do we not have a date yet?
So I mentioned December 12th and
That's what I couldn't
13th.
hear. 12th and 13th. Okay, thank you.
Melinda, what are we doing about advertising this or getting the word out to attendees for this public meeting?
So what I've been told is that the Lakota group has prepared information that can be shared via social media platforms. Chris has also mentioned the fact that he would like to take event flyers and possibly go door to door in and or around where the meeting locations will be, where the meetings will be held. The final locations for those workshops have not yet been determined, so we're just over a month out from those workshops, and I know when I last spoke with Chris, he was still looking at confirming locations and times for those public workshops. So once locations and times are set, that information can be plugged into the templates that the Lakota group has presented, and those flyers can be printed and distributed, as well as the social media posts be shared. We also tentatively talked about, this is just Chris and I on a phone call, talked about making sure that this information goes out early enough to our neighborhood groups and others that would have networks of people, existing networks of people that they could share this information with. That's going to be a critical part of promoting these workshops, and Chris was in agreement. So that's what I know at this particular juncture.
You said it's the 12th and 13th. Is that one meeting each day, or what is their plan when they get here on the 12th and 13th?
So the meeting arrangement for those 2 days has yet to be determined. What I know is being proposed for those 2 days is one general public meeting that will be scheduled in the evening, and 2 public meetings that will also be open to the public scheduled during the day. And the intent is to have all 3 of those meetings in different areas of the city to make sure that we're drawing in different populations.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Craig has a question.
Have we considered with some of the neighborhoods and areas that we have already decided we want to try and pursue, would it make sense to send a postcard to each of the building owners in those areas to alert them to this?
What do you mean by building owners?
Well, people that own property in the areas that we're contemplating trying to, make it a preservation local historic district, right?
Just a mass mailing to every resident in a district area that we
Right,
define.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
I think that would help our attendance.
Or the neighborhood group could maybe disperse that to their membership or in a meeting.
Well, yes, but
Neighborhood.
some sort of method of telling these people we're doing this.
Refresh my memory, where is the proposed historic district?
Well, there are quite a few. I mean, I think we all voted and we already made the one downtown, the
West Sixth Street?
yeah,
Okay.
right.
But in addition to that.
Well, no, in addition to that, the
Let's
business.
hold on. Let's clarify. We actually, no historic districts have been created. Let's take the time
What was it we were doing for the downtown?
to be clear.
I thought we had.
No.
No.
But really, to answer your question, Dave, this is part of the preservation plan. They came back in, was it September, and we met, and of course, we met at ECAT there on East Avenue. I think there was like one, maybe two community members
Right,
there.
right.
So,
At ECAT.
yeah, at ECAT,
Yes.
Yeah, I
yeah.
was
So
at-
we didn't have a good representation of the
No.
community, and I don't know how we can do better. Maybe it's a mass mailing.
But I guess my question is, we'd have to do a targeted mailing
Well,
in
I
some
guess-
area, and I'm just trying to get a
Yeah,
sense
well,
from
we
you what
have
area that
talked
would
in
be.
this group about several different neighborhoods that we thought would be good. And I just thought, maybe those people think that they're a good candidate for this as well. And it might not be a bad idea to, sending them a postcard about this isn't a commitment. It's just,
I just wanted to know exactly what the geographic locations is.
well,
are.
I think you're correct. Everybody on on Millionaires Row would be a good group of candidates. I think building owners in the, all this wonderful renovation that's happening downtown.
Well, West 26th Street is interested, right by St. Vincent's Hospital.
By St.
But
Vincent's?
yeah,
23rd or 26th?
21st Street.
I know, Richard
Parade
Merwin,
Street.
I apologize, I was not at the October meeting. I made it to the thing at the
ECAP.
East. But, and I don't know if Chris brought this up, but I know in September, Chris and I met with Richard Merwin because he's very interested in trying to get some sort of a district going with the Mother Teresa school building, what used to be the original St. Peter's building. And so, there's another group of buildings there that have approached. He does not own that building, obviously, the diocese does, but I guess he's very involved with the Mother Teresa school. So I just think that maybe we all have a situation like that where someone has come up to you and said, hey, I understand you're on this historic commission for the city and have brought up an interest, whatever. I think people like that would be prime candidates.
I've got an alternative idea, which is why not use the existing neighborhood organizations, give them a digital flyer, and let them send it out digitally to their contacts in those neighborhoods. I think it would accomplish the same thing.
Well, maybe we could do all of the above, right? Like alternative energy.
Well,
It's all
yeah.
potentially good, right?
I don't know if I've got the ability at the moment to do a geographic area and get all the addresses and generate labels. And I'm not saying I couldn't do it, but thinking about where
what was the last, when did we do the last survey thinking of another historic district in Erie? Don't we have that somewhere?
So I think we also, if I can just kind of chime in here, I also think it's important for us to distinguish between the development of the Historic Preservation Plan, which is a citywide plan that includes not just, potential historic resources and districts for local designation, but the Historic Preservation Plan is really intended to be a broad discussion about historic preservation in the city. And so, I just think it's important for us to kind of continue to differentiate between what we're trying to achieve with development of this Historic Preservation Plan and kind of the individual work that has been done involving communication with either groups of property owners or individual property owners around local designation. So I just wanted to make that distinction.
Okay, well, I just think that there's some wonderful neighborhoods in our downtown where there is absentee ownership and people living in the residences, and that they would be interested.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree with you. I think we could leverage existing organizations to reach their
Yeah, and I'm all
people.
for that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, for me, that would be the fastest, most efficient use of my time,
Now,
is to do it that way.
The city has access to the television media, the news media,
Right.
right? I mean, we need to get it out widespread. I don't think we need to mail something to everybody in the city of Erie, but if we can get the message out that way and target the groups that we know that are
Right.
interested. We tried that with ECAT and we didn't do so well.
Well,
Because
Getting people in.
our consultants are very good at what they do, but we need to bring them
People.
people.
Right.
we'll, at the staff level, we'll cover the water. We'll get it done. We'll distribute that in a robust fashion.
I think you could also send out a media release to just the local stations and the Times News and just tell them this is going on, and maybe they'll print it and there'll be some easy advertising to get the word out.
Yeah. A couple
I'd
times they
include
need
the
to
Erie
hear.
Reader. They've done
Yeah.
a lot of good
Yeah.
things on
I mean, just
preservation.
a media release, a simpler media release to kind of put it out there, and that'll help get the word out.
Right. But a couple times too. One time isn't going to get it, right?
And I know it sounds crazy, but I would do a Facebook event page for it, so it can be shared across Facebook.
That's a real good idea.
I mean, like, we do that. Spending $300 on Facebook covers thousands and thousands of people.
It sure does.
And then people could then share the event, so everybody could be tagged, you could share the event. And we have, I don't know how many people follow PACA, 4,000 people?
Well, I don't think we could have too many people know about it, so,
Right. So
that,
that, we would be happy to spread that, but
Right.
an event page is not difficult to do.
We will.
well, I would suggest that we do that. Are you able to do it? I think it's great, but I couldn't do it if my life
It doesn't
depended
take
on
much to do it.
No.
It's just kind of getting a few
Yeah,
things
you just add
lined up.
some visuals and some times, and it's free.
Yep. All right.
So there's no tickets, you don't have to link to a ticket site.
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, we'll move it forward.
And then you can share it, and then people could share it that are on
Right.
committees or,
Well, that'd be great.
neighborhood groups.
Okay. Okay, Melinda, sorry. Back to you.
So moving on then to, it's under new business, but it's also old business. So the first item under the new business, which again is old business, is the kind of ongoing discussion regarding the nomination for the mayor building, which is PACA. The PACA building. And so I'm hopeful that everyone has in front of them a copy of the revised nomination. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there questions, concerns, comments about the nomination revision?
Can we move to vote?
What we will need is ultimately a motion to recommend the nomination to both the Planning Commission and ultimately City Council for designation. We do not have the authority to designate historic properties. The Historic Review Commission has only the authority to recommend to both the Planning Commission and City Council that we recommend a nomination for local designation.
Well, I would like to suggest that. I would like to make the motion to recommend this to the City Council for them to vote on it.
I just had a quick question first.
We have a second?
Oh, no,
Dave's got
there's
a
a
question.
question.
I just had a quick question first. Sorry, I was kind of starting. The attachment's just not with it? I know there's a location map and the photo, they just weren't, this is just a.
It wasn't because that was the fastest way I could get it copied.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, and I've seen those before, I was just making sure that it's all one package and we don't miss those details, okay.
And may I ask if ultimately I would go to the city council? Or I know that I would have to recuse myself in this particular situation because as executive director of PACA, but then would I, as executive director of PACA, go before city council and ask for them to approve it? Or would I be as a member of this group?
It's gotta go to neighborhood plan.
Yeah, how
You know,
does
or
that
would the
work?
neighborhood planning go
Planning
and
goes
then
first.
would I also go?
So,
I'm just
so
don't know the
Mark, you
process.
can certainly, Mark, you can speak on behalf of the nomination, but ultimately this would be something that the Planning Commission is moving forward with City Council. It requires an amendment to zoning. So this is not something that you, this again ultimately requires the vote and approval by City Council. You can certainly attend those meetings and speak on behalf of the property owner, why the nomination is important to you, why you feel the designation is important. But now that the nomination, or once the nomination is in the queue, it's actually the city's responsibility to continue to move it forward. So Chris would ultimately be responsible for helping to move this through the Planning Commission and ultimately getting it in front of City Council.
So Melinda, can you enlighten me, what is the process then? Good Planning Commission and then City Council?
So
Well, I
the
got-
recommendation needs to go, oh, go ahead.
No, I've got it here, but yeah, unless you know it, Linda, or I can read it to you.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. All right, so it's the planning commission, and then it goes to city council, and city council makes the final decision.
Okay.
Okay, I just didn't know the process.
Melinda, you said some kind of changing to zoning as a result of this? Unless I misheard you?
So yes, so keep in mind that we created a historic overlay district. We created a historic overlay district ordinance. And so it is an ordinance that is housed within zoning, which means whenever we designate a historic district or an individual property for this overlay district, it requires a change to that zoning.
So in other words, the property itself is going to be rezoned, is that what you're saying?
No, it's a zoning overlay.
I'm saying it's an
Okay.
overlay.
An overlay
Yeah,
for the
so
property?
it'll show up on the zoning map
Okay,
as a change to the zoning.
as a change to
Because
the
it's the first
zoning.
zoning overlay district. Because we've had the article for a while, but we never designated a district. So this is the first one
Right,
that'll be on the map.
correct.
Okay, all right.
And I think I'm happy to be part of that process so that we get our feet wet and we know we can see the process from A to Z and we know what is going to happen and we can tell that to new and other potential districts. This is how we did it the last time and this is how it worked.
Yeah. Okay.
So our recommendation, again, with the nomination, would then go to the Planning Commission, which they will then review the nomination as well as our recommendation. And Chris would be part of that and could speak on behalf of the Historic Review Commission. And then if the Planning Commission has additional questions, they may bring those questions back to the Historic Review Commission, and/or they could determine to put it forward to for ultimate presentation and voting on by City Council. Okay. So we have a motion on the table to recommend.
We don't have a timeline for when this might come before council. I'm sorry, I try and keep a running agenda list, but do you see this coming before council in 2022? We have 3 regular meetings left, so just, you don't have to tell me now, but it'd be good to know if we can factor it in.
I actually can't answer that question just because I don't know when I don't know when the next planning commission meeting is. And I'm guessing that we would need at least maybe 1 to 2 weeks leeway or leading into the next city council meeting. So we would have to get it approved by the planning commission and or a thumbs up by the planning commission, and then they would move it forward to city council. And I can't tell you what that process is just because I don't know when the next planning commission meeting is.
Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Glad you said something, Liz. I didn't realize you were there.
She's up on the council thing.
That's great.
Okay.
So I'm moving back then to the motion. We have a motion on the table that was made to recommend the nomination for historic overlay district designation for the mayor building at 1501 to 1509 State Street. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dave Brennan. Is there any further discussion regarding the motion? All those in favor, please signify by aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
I would recuse myself, and I don't know if that needs to be on the record.
That's a good idea.
An abstention or however.
Yeah.
Excellent. We've made our first recommendation to approve a nomination.
Yay!
Okay, if we don't have any other questions about that, we can move on to the discussion of the grant guidelines and application for the grant program that will be supporting historic property improvements. It's being funded with the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund grant monies, which were allocated to the city through the American Rescue Plan Act. So again, I'm guessing that everyone has a set of these printed in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Can I just comment on this, Melinda? Melinda, did you hear me?
I do, go right ahead, yes.
Okay, so this is the last version that you supplied me. This is what everybody's looking at. And my understanding is that you incorporated, or it incorporates everybody's comments up to a certain point. Is that right, Melinda? Do I have that right?
It does, yes. So
Okay.
the one that was sent, that I sent this morning,
Right. Okay. So since that time.
is that the one you're referring to?
Yes, yes. So that's what everybody has in front of them. Since that time, there are a couple of changes that I wanted to point out. And that's why Aaron Snippert is here from the Redevelopment Authority as well. So Aaron has worked on
Excellent.
an application form. So it seems that the application form that Chris worked on as part of this is redundant. At least that's my assumption. And that's why I've X'd out Chris's application form. But I could be wrong about that, so I'm kind of running that past everybody.
Has Chris seen this?
Has he seen that
Uh-huh.
one? I don't know. Has he seen that, Darren?
Yeah, I sent it to him last
Okay.
week.
So there only needs to be one, there doesn't need to be a duplication.
Well, I'm asking the question, and I don't necessarily know the answer. I don't see why there would need to be two.
Right, yeah, when Chris and I started this conversation several months ago, we discussed he was gonna work on the guidelines with you guys as its committee, and then I would work on the application since, the money's sitting in the Redevelopment Authority office. So, we would handle the intake of the applications and getting it all packaged up to Chris to then be presented to the HRC. So,
Okay.
I told him I'd handle the application. He probably just decided to pull one together too, so.
So that's one change.
Okay.
The second change, and I have a couple other changes and they're minor. If you go to page 2, you'll see that, and Melinda, I'm sorry you're not able to see this because I thought you were going to be here in person. I apologize. But under the sentence, exterior painting and staining projects are eligible, there's another paragraph. And with Aaron's help, I added some additional language regarding the prevailing wage, because I guess, Aaron, if the project exceeds $25,000, it's subject to the prevailing wage. And I think the text here had suggested that every project was going to be subject to the prevailing wage.
What am I missing? I don't.
On
Do
the
I not
second
have that?
page.
I don't have, I don't know.
Is this the right, are you looking at this one?
Go back one,
Oh, you're looking at the.
one pack of paper right in front
Look
of
at
you.
the City of Erie one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Page 2. There you go.
Oh, okay.
This, I think it's this one.
Oh, okay.
Go to page 2. These are the guidelines.
Oh, okay, great. All right, thank you. I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about that other application. Okay. Yeah.
So in the original form, residential projects by the owner or owner-occupied were going to be exempt from the requirement for prevailing wage.
Under the state of Pennsylvania, any use of public and private funds in a mix of over $25,000 requires prevailing wage. Given that these are American Rescue Plan funds from the United States Treasury, they are considered federal funds.
So if our grant is a maximum of $15,000, if their project is over 15, right, does that count, or is it just that we're giving them the $15,000?
They would be granted $15,000 unless their entire project is $30,000 and they're only asking for 15.
Well, they could only get
Yes.
15, right? with the
Right, so
grant.
anybody could potentially, request or submit an application saying, hey, I have a $28,000 project, I want $15,000 in grant funds, the remaining part's gonna be private. That would, however, take them into prevailing wage.
Wait, let me make sure I understand that then.
Total.
Doesn't matter where the
mix,
funding comes
public,
from.
private, doesn't matter where it comes from, as long
Because
as
we've
the
done that.
total funding in the project.
All right, so total funding, if it exceeds 25,000, has to be prevailing wage.
Yes.
Which is almost anything these days.
So the other part of that is that we need some way to ensure that they're paying prevailing wages, which goes to the second part of that paragraph, where we're requiring certified payrolls to be submitted at the time that the applicant seeks reimbursement.
From the vendor who's going to do the restoration or whatever.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but that's,
So the homeowner or the business owner would have to pay the money up front. Then they would be reimbursed. And in that process, the contractor would have to provide certified payroll stubs
Okay.
so that their painter or their drywall hanger or their plumber, et cetera, would have been paid prevailing wage.
Yes.
okay, and the third change is a minor one. It's on page 3 towards the top, second paragraph, final sentence. What the guidelines state is that a certificate of appropriateness would be awarded at the same time as this grant is awarded. But what I added was subject to the payment of the appropriate fee, because we're going to charge, my understanding is we're going to charge a fee for a certificate of appropriateness. So if someone's going to get a certificate of appropriateness out of this grant process, they need to pay for the fee for the certificate of appropriateness.
Do we know what that fee is?
That would be something that the council would set at the appropriate time by ordinance. It'll have to be an amount that staff determines will cover the costs.
Costs of your time?
Yeah, staff time, your time, the building.
Just like any other fee.
Yeah.
There's a rezoning or whatever.
Right.
There's a fee for that.
Yeah. So I think those are the only changes since you last saw this document.
Okay, a couple comments. I sent you a later revised copy of it. I want to make a change to the eligibility requirements.
Over here where? On
So on page 1, eligibility requirements, the very last bullet item, I want to change the words to the following. Properties that have been listed on or meet the criteria for listing on the National Register of Historic Places this is, you're eligible if you are. The City of Erie Preservation Planner must determine that a property meets the criteria set by the Pennsylvania State Historic Preservation Office for historic buildings. Note that the owner is not required to pursue listing the property on the National Register, only that the property meets the SHPO standards so as to be eligible for this grant. So what I'm saying is, it says properties eligible for listing on the National Register. What I'm saying is, you don't have to be going to get your building listed on the National Register. You just have to meet the criteria that SHPO says it is to be a historic building.
Okay.
Because these people are going to say, hey, I'm going to sign up for this and I have to go get my building registered with the National. No. We're just using their criteria to say you're eligible for this grant.
So, I mean, this draft says properties eligible for listing on the National Register for Historic Places would be eligible. That's how is that different from what you're saying?
So what I'm saying is the criteria used to get you listed is what we're using. If you meet those criteria, you can be eligible for this grant. So you don't have to be listed, you don't have to intend to be listed, you're not going to be listed, you just have to meet the criteria.
Because there have been tons of surveys done of potential historic
Can I see your
National Register
Yep, it's the
districts and candidates.
Right, but if I'm gonna, if we had a big discussion last time about how to open the eligibility up to, because we don't have any historic districts, well, until PACA now. So what we said was we would make it on a historic district that is in process, or we said as long as your building meets the requirements, you would be eligible for the grant.
So who makes that judgment then?
Chris.
Right.
Chris, that's what he said last time, that he is
Okay.
a historic preservation designator. He can look at your building.
Otherwise, you'd have to go on PA Share, the City Historic Preservation Office website, to fill
people-
an application, and then they would get back to you. But if Chris is going to make the designation, he's going to make that judgment.
Right, and that's what it says here, that the.
Because people, in fact, do apply for the National Historic Register, but they think they have all the criteria, and they're turned down.
Yeah, the City of Erie Preservation Planner must determine that a property meets the criteria set by
Okay.
SHPO.
So
for historic
could we just say properties eligible for listing on the National Historic Register of Places meeting the criteria of SHPO are eligible?
As interpreted by,
Well, right, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it go-
I
almost
actually
goes,
don't know
almost
that we
goes,
need
almost
to get
goes
into
without
the weeds
saying,
that
but.
far.
What's that? Well, somebody's gonna come back
I
and
think
say, somebody's
I
gonna come back
think you're onto
and say,
something. I like your thinking.
somebody's gonna come back and say, well, you granted it for them, you didn't grant it for him, how
Right.
come, right? This way,
Right.
we have it in writing that says,
Here's
either
the
you're in
deal.
a district, or you're in a district that's under process, or your building meets the SHPO standards. But I wanna make it clear to people that read this and says, hey, that doesn't mean you have to go
And
get your
who-
building
who-
registered, you
and-
just have to meet the criteria.
Should we mention that there's a local person eligible to make that
And it
determination?
says that.
Yeah,
And it says that.
okay.
Okay, so as determined by the Historic Preservation Planner. Oh, sorry. As determined by the Historic Preservation Planner.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
you have to,
Can I?
the buck has to
Yep,
stop somewhere.
I
and you should
I
say
get
where
the
it starts.
idea, I'd like to, I
Yeah.
mean,
I actually sent it to probably after we had the email exchange,
Yeah.
but I'll send it to you again.
Melinda, did you have a comment about that, or did you want to discuss that further? I saw you.
What is in the handout that Dave gave us, that very last item, very last bullet point, I'm expanding what that says to what I just read to you.
Okay.
Okay?
I look at it as more of like a subtle difference but I think I get it.
Yes, what I don't want people to do is look at this and say, I have to list my building on the National Register of Historic Places, so I'm not gonna bother.
Right.
No,
Right.
you
Doesn't
don't.
it just say eligible, though?
Yeah, it does say eligible.
It doesn't say you have to be listed.
Correct, and what does eligible mean?
Correct.
That you have to meet the standards that SHPO states for historic building, that makes you eligible,
Okay, property.
right?
I think you're overcomplicating things.
Well, everybody in the room is very aware of what all the terms and conditions and all these things mean, but the normal person out there in the public doesn't understand what a historic review, what historic
Right.
district means and register means and what eligible
Right.
means. And what I'm trying to do is avoid confusion of people saying, I can't meet this, I'm not gonna apply. It is very complicated, it's more detailed, but it's going to, for the person who is not really into historic preservation, they're gonna see, hey, I still could be eligible.
I've got a suggestion. How about properties eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places according to SHPO criteria as a single building or within a proposed historic district as determined by the city historic preservation planner?
Okay, but you need to add, you don't have to pursue
Well,
historic register.
No, you don't, but the word eligible covers that.
You need to put, we need to put that in there.
Okay.
Because it makes it sound like,
Okay,
if
well,
I'm
how about,
eligible, I have to
how
be
about
on
I
the
add at
register.
the end, listing on the National Register is not required.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay, so property is eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places according to SHPO criteria as a single building or within a proposed historic district as determined by the city historic preservation planner. End of sentence. Listing on the National Historic Register is not required.
Yeah, that's good.
Does that cover it?
That's fine.
Okay.
All right. I've got one more. And I said on page 3, I don't know exactly where this should fall, but it said reimbursement will be paid on approved grants even if they're completed after December 31st, 2024. So if on December 10th I get a grant, I can get my work done and I still get paid even though it occurred after the cutoff of this program.
Yes, because any funds are eligible for expenditure past that date to, I believe, 2026, as long as they've been allocated.
Okay, so we should add that.
And then, and then that money is put aside.
Yes. But I know I don't have to rush and get it done in a month, right? I know that I get my grant at the last minute if there's money left. I will still get my money even after that December 31st, 2020.
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly clarify that allocated date and had that added as far as a final completion by.
So 26 is actually it's got to be done by 26.
Here,
Okay.
why don't we just put the completion date on the application, redevelopment authority application? You know, your project has to be completed by 2026.
I put it on page 4 of the guidelines under reimbursement.
I think it's a good idea to put it on the paperwork they sign too, that there's a drop dead date.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing bad. All projects must be
Okay.
approved by and completed by.
Okay.
So Jeff,
So if you read the guidelines, so on page 4, it actually states that grant-funded projects must be completed within 1 year from the date of the Historic Review Commission meeting at which the grant was awarded.
Okay. And all I'm telling people is that even if it falls after that December 31st date, they'll still get their money.
So that should be included in the grant award agreement. So the grant award agreement will actually be an additional document that's issued by the redevelopment authority. It will be the document that actually has the binding information, and it will, at least it should, include the grant period, when the funds need to be expended, what the process is if someone needs to request an extension. Is Aaron still in the room? Is he able to confirm that, yes, the grant award agreement with the redevelopment authority will include all of that information?
That is correct. It will.
Is there any reason it hurts to put it in this guideline? Is there any reason why? it shouldn't?
where do you want to put it?
I think she made, a valid point that it's, improved out, the December 31st, 2024, and has to be completed within 1 year, which is certainly well within the time frame. So, I mean, it's already in there. There's no point in adding duplicate information.
All right, well, I don't disagree, I don't agree, but whatever. I made my point.
So we stopped granting when in '24?
December 31st of '24.
I see, okay, so you're saying the 1 year would cover it because
It's only December of
there's,
'25.
that would be 25, right, okay.
And Dave, you said the fee amount for the COA, the staff will determine that, correct?
That's correct.
But you're talking like $50 or something like that. You're not talking a terrific amount of money.
No, it'll be a nominal amount, I'm sure.
Okay, right. So like $500.
It will not be $500.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is it'll be minimal.
Let's make it somehow connected to the amount of money that you're applying for. Because if they're applying for a smaller amount, then, I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking out loud about, like a building permit, if it's a large project, you pay more
Right.
fee.
Percentage of
Yeah,
asset fee.
building permits are relative to the amount of the cost.
We've never set
I-
the amount for the historic districts, what the
I mean, you're going to
COA
be
is.
pulling a building permit anyway, and more than likely, so you're going to pay that. And so this is just an add-on. I just see it as a nominal administrative fee, just to cover
Okay.
our costs, you know.
Okay.
People
And
do
so
get
just to
upset.
quickly review the changes that have been proposed, we're removing the application portion so that it is solely a guidelines document. Erin, thank you for providing that clarification. We've had a couple of conversations as the Historic Review Commission with Chris, and I think that piece of it maybe hadn't been clear with us before, that these were to be just solely the guidelines, not the application, that the application itself would be handled by the redevelopment authority. So that clarification is helpful. So we've got that change. We also have the adjustment to the language around properties that are eligible for listing on the National Register. We also have the editing of the language with regards to the certificate of appropriateness that will be issued simultaneously in it, after the COA fee is paid. And is that it? Are those the changes?
Did you mention prevailing wages?
Oh, thank you. Yes. Edits were made to that prevailing wage section.
Freezing in here. I don't know.
Do we have any further questions or concerns? Would someone like to entertain a motion to approve the guidelines with those edits?
I would entertain that motion.
Okay, so Craig motions to accept or to approve the guidelines with those four edits. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jeff. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, do we have all those in favor of approving the motion, please signify by aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, excellent. We've got our guidelines passed. Erin, you must be excited about that too.
Absolutely. It'll be on the race board agenda for next Monday for their approval, and then we can make it public.
Great.
Fantastic.
When's your next meeting?
Monday at 4 p.m.
Okay.
We did not receive a report from the historic preservation planner. Dave, did Chris submit to you a report before he left?
No.
Okay, so we don't have that.
I'm sorry, I missed if someone responded. Dave, did Chris provide to
no.
you a report?
No.
Okay, then we will skip item D. And if we don't have, are there any further points to discuss before moving towards adjournment?
Well, I would like to discuss one thing now that we have the grant process in place, is thinking on the practical side, like they did during our camp training. Right, we're gonna start getting all of these applications for grants, or we're gonna be calling to make decisions on whether they are approved or not. And just in my walk around my neighborhood today, I started looking at potential, people that could ask for money, right? And so a couple examples I think of. Would these things, if these projects were brought to us as a request for a grant, would we approve them? So this is kind of like an example. And there's a house in my neighborhood, right, that's got the front steps, which are on the cheek walls of the front steps. They've got brick on both sides. Well, the frost has heaved it. It's starting to fall apart. If somebody comes and says, I want to rebuild my front steps, it's in keeping with the design of the house, and they ask for money for that, would we approve it?
Now, does the house have to already be in an area that we've designated as a?
No, because we said as long as it's eligible for register on the National Register, right, if it
Okay.
meets that criteria, so that, say that building meets that criteria. So now they're asking for money to repair their front steps. I think it would be.
Yeah, why wouldn't it be?
Okay, I just want to make sure, because we have to be consistent, right? We can't say yes to this and no to that.
Mhm.
Now, there's another house on my street, and it's like a 50s style ranch house, and it's a very small ranch, and they built a new deck on the front of it with composite decking and handrails and stuff. So if, say I wanted to do that, say I owned a house like that and I wanted to put an addition, I want to put a deck on the front of my house like that, would that be eligible for a grant? We're going to be starting to get these requests, that's why I bring them.
It's a brand new, a deck on the front of the house or a porch?
It is a deck with a railing, no roof over the top.
Was there something like that there before?
A very small entrance, probably no more than like 4 foot sticking out in front of the house.
So,
If it wasn't there before,
yeah,
then I can't picture
why we would do it.
approving something that wasn't there before.
Okay, all right, but again, these are examples, I
Again,
want
they
to
can
make
do
sure
what
we
they
start.
want, but using these funds that are for preservation would be appropriate.
This is why you have the hearings, right?
Unless they can
'Cause you'll-
show that
as these things come up,
the picture
you'll
in
kinda
1952 and it had
Develop a track record and kind of an better understanding.
And we have to be consistent. Here's another one. You go up on West 34th Street, and there's streets and streets of tract housing, okay? Some of them haven't been touched in the 6 years since they've been built, and some have been recently renovated, and they look very nice. So say I own one of the houses that hasn't been touched in the last 60 years, it's got 8-inch siding, and I come to the Historic Preservation Committee and say, I want to put double 4 vinyl siding on it. Would we approve that?
Was it there before?
It was aluminum 8-inch siding before.
That was what's been there historically. That was the original siding.
Correct.
And you want to change the siding width.
Say
I would
want-
argue to use the width that was originally with the building.
And the other
It's
question
still
on that, and the other question is, right, this is meant for improvements visible from the street. Well, of course, I want to side my whole house. I don't want to just side the front of it. So if they come and say, all right, I'm going to make a grant application to put double 4 vinyl siding on my house all the way around, would we approve that?
You're replacing vinyl siding?
Well,
I'm
I think-
replacing 8-inch aluminum siding. That's what exists in the house. That's what it's always been.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you don't mind, I think, this isn't a facade grant. It's a historic preservation, and granted, if they're going to repair their property, you want them to repair all sides of their property. And then, as far as thinking of different scenarios, as far as what wouldn't be approved, and I can tell you from experience that, you can sit here all day and you can think about the different options that might come up. We had one this morning that, we had a meeting at 8:30, and at 9:30, a whole different scenario on the exact same topic popped up, that we did not discuss. I mean, so you're always going to get a curveball, and really that's what the application and the backup documentation is for, is to provide that detail and that information for the committee to review and approve, and make that decision at that time. I mean, like you said, you kind of have to stick to some kind of criteria, but I mean, it's going to be tough.
But my point is, we will be prepared, we will be asked to make these decisions very quickly as soon as people start applying for the grants. We have to think about what we're going to say, so that we're not, so we can give them an answer.
Yeah, but they're all going to be, as part of an application, it'll be a part of the scope of work, and in some sense they'll be kind of unique, and you'll have to take them one at a time. And that's what the hearing is for, that's what the documentation is for. And I think Aaron said it well. I don't think you're going to be able to sit here and anticipate every kind of. So I think you just have to wait and see what happens and deliberate as a body.
Well, I'm expecting also that Chris will look through these applications,
Right.
and some of them may not even go to committee. He may make the decision that it won't even need to be looked at, because why waste time?
Right.
And again, we want to spend the time on the ones that are appropriate to meet these regulations.
Yeah, we should be weeding through the things that just don't meet the criteria.
Yeah,
So you
and
don't
Chris will be
have to.
that filter to bring it to the committee.
Melinda,
There
you
might be other avenues, though, that somebody can be.
I gotta jump to another meeting, guys.
This doesn't meet this criteria.
Okay.
I understand your desire to fix your house or make sure it's.
Yeah.
Well,
So there
Might be other
We should have-
redevelopment grants for something else.
We definitely want to have other resources available, whatever we know of that's out there. So
Okay,
we'll-
all right,
we'll
but
definitely offer that.
here's what the guidelines say. It says, applications will be accepted, blah, blah, blah. Funding decisions will be made by the City of Erie Historic Review Commission. It doesn't say anything about the preservation planner making a decision. It
But I
says
know
the
we
review
talked
com-
before about certain decisions that would not need to come to the committee.
Well, that's what it says in here, is it be made by the Historic Review Commission. That's what it says in the guidelines.
So I
Is
think,
there
I think what Dave was referring to, the applications that may not be put before the Historic Review Commission, may be applications that are incomplete, or they are proposing projects that are ineligible. And so by the very nature of the guidelines, they do not meet the eligibility criteria for funding, right? If an application is incomplete and or is seeking funding for a project that is not an eligible use of funding, those applications, there's no reason for the Historic Review Commission to review those.
Yeah,
And it
I agree.
addresses that. It says, complete grant applications must be received by the Historic Preservation Planner prior to the meeting. But it doesn't say anything about the preservation planner making a decision. This says everything comes to the Historic.
No, but he would
Review
make, as Melinda said, he would make sure it's a complete application and it applies. And then
Right.
then would come to the committee to actually review it for content.
Right.
But he would make sure that it, as
He would
Melinda
make
just
sure it's
described.
complete, but he wouldn't decide yes or no to approve the grant.
No, but he would make sure it's actually eligible so that it can go to the committee.
Right. So all those decisions will not be made on a staff level. This says it'll be done by the HRC.
Yeah.
I mean,
So do we need to add that, do you think?
I really don't think you need to add that. I mean, I'm not going to bring, or we're not going to bring somebody before this board who has an ineligible project and make them pay a fee only to get that booted
Well,
by you
it's
guys.
kind of like zoning. Zoning, you prepare a package, a submission, and they review it. If there's something missing, they get back to you. They don't just reject it. But it's not going to go to committee incomplete or not eligible.
Well, take my example of siding the house. Are you saying that if I came to you to make that application about siding the house, at that level, you would say, no, you can't go any farther than this, that it's not eligible for a grant? Is that what
Why
you're saying?
wouldn't it be eligible?
Well, I haven't even thought through, I haven't even thought
coming,
through
that's
the
what I'm saying.
application. All I can tell you is give me a real application and we'll deal with it. We can, it'll be okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But according to the guidelines we just all agreed to, the decision is made by the committee, not at a staff level.
Yeah, generally speaking, yeah, but if it is ineligible, there is no reason for this board to review that, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I'm not
And I'm not
trying-
gonna waste your time or the applicant's
Right,
time.
and I'm not trying to make work for the committee, I'm just saying, what is the process?
Well,
What I'm hearing is the process is,
well-
the preservation planner does not make the decision. He brings them all to the board. That's what it says.
Well, generally speaking, yes, but.
Well, I guess,
Let me,
could
let
we,
me,
sorry.
no, please.
Could we have a policy which is, we all are entitled to see everything submitted?
I think you're creating additional work for yourselves. My recommendation is get the process started and see
And
how
if
it's
this comes
going.
up, then,
And, right, if things are not working out, you can make adjustments, but I think it'll be okay, but you can always make some adjustments to the process going forward.
You can. My concern again is if we decide one way now and 3 months from now, we decide a different way, somebody's gonna say, hey, you didn't do that for me. You know, we have to be consistent. You can't say, well, you approved it for him, and then, well, you changed your mind, in the meantime, now I don't get approved.
I agree
Jeff,
with that,
I think that we
but-
can self-regulate. I'm sorry, Dave.
No, I was just gonna say, you know, sometimes these things are part of growing pains, to be honest with you. I mean, when you're starting a new process with a new board and grant money, you know, you learn as you go, and you're gonna make mistakes. More than likely, you're gonna make mistakes. And it'll be, but, you know, you'll work through them and you'll perfect the process, but I don't think you're gonna have a perfect process on day one.
Okay, well, when we're starting to review actual grants, I just want to make sure that we're prepared, right? So that we're not
you want
having
to be
these
able
kind
to
of
walk
discussions,
safely
changing
in
the
your
rules.
neighborhood.
What's that?
You want to be able to walk safely in your neighborhood.
Well-
From angry neighbors that were turned down.
I'm just hoping we get applications.
Yeah, me too. Me too. All right, well, those kind of decisions are coming. That's why I just wanted, it's just like they did in the camp trading. They ran us through some scenarios and say, what would you decide
that part.
in this situation? So we're going to be seeing that soon.
No, those are really good points. Because we don't know what the reception's going to be, or,
Yeah, I hope
Right.
we do get lots of applications. But that also depends on how well it's communicated, right, that these grants are available.
which is our job.
All right, Melinda, that's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you for that additional conversation. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All those in favor of adjournment at 5:10 PM, please signify by aye.
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 Thank you.
Excellent. Well done, guys.
Can I steal your pen?
I don't think.
Jeff, you...